Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Since his first role, Jesse Eisenberg has brought an indelible presence to his movies, whether it was as an angsty teen in the midst of a divorce in Squid and the Whale, ruthless loner Mark Zuckerberg or Lex Luthor in Batman vs. Superman, or as Columbus in 2009's Zombieland, for which he is returning in Zombieland 2 Double Tap, opening this weekend. But before he comes out here, let's take a look.
Hey, Possum, eh?
Sorry, just you in that chair.
I think I would have made a damn fine president.
You would have brought a real dignity to the office.
You're welcome, America.
Welcome to Zombieland. Life is about more than just survival. We were a family. Dysfunctional, sure, but what family isn't?
Merry Christmas! What would you like, little girl?
I'd really like for you to stop calling me little girl.
Do you know what I would like?
I don't give a shit what you...
It felt so good to be on the move again.
Whoa! Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm Columbus.
Madison.
This is Tallahassee.
Hey, Paul Blart. Is this your dad? Oh, whoopsie. I forgot the seatbelt rule.
Oh, so she knows the rules?
I told her just a few of them.
73. Are there more?
You're cute. I like it. My sister is gone. She picked up a boy. He's from Berkeley.
Berkeley.
You don't have weed, do you?
Do I look like the type of person that would have weed?
I'm sorry.
Boom! Yeah?
I have nothing against hippies. I just want to beat the shit out of them. We're gonna go get her. We ride it, Dawn.
Start talking.
You first. Oh, my name's Tallahassee. Die, zombie! Light 'em up! No! That's my ride! Oh, my apologies, little Elvis.
Okay, is it me or does he kind of remind you of...
I don't like you. At all.
I think you double parked. Or more perpendicular parked. Hope we don't get a ticket.
What is going on here?
What?
Hello, everyone.
Am I hallucinating?
Everybody, please welcome Jesse Eisenberg.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Ricky.
Congrats on Zombieland Double Tap.
Yeah, the sequel.
The sequel.
Squeakquel.
I'm curious, you know, in 2009 when the first Zombieland came out, I feel like there weren't any other movies like that yet who had really tapped into the genre in a self-reflexive, sort of mocking way, making fun of itself, as well as making the movie entertaining on its own while doing it. And now we've had Deadpool, we have a number of versions of that. What is it like for you to sort of come back to this after it seems like, I mean, even though Deadpool is the same writer.
It's the same writers, so I think the thing that you're referring to might, in fact, just be the style that they write in, which is like what I would describe at its best as like a mixture of really highbrow humor. And by highbrow, I don't just mean sophisticated references to Milton. I mean like... Which
are always funny.
Sure. Yeah. There actually is like a Steinbeck reference in this, and I asked Ruben Fleischer, the director, like, you're going to cut that out, right? And he was like, no, this gets a laugh. I said, from who? He's like, one person.
Wait, what is the Steinbeck reference?
I say something like, I have to go shoot something. I say, oh, time to teach Lenny about the rabbits.
Oh, yes, sorry.
But what I would say, like, at its best, the style of this movie is like very kind of lowbrow base humor that is ironic sometimes, and also highbrow humor that doesn't worry about losing people on certain jokes. And it's this strange mix that doesn't kind of like apologize for itself. It doesn't like it doesn't pander to kind of, let's say the widest, you know, that every joke should hit everybody. That makes it, I think, so special. And then the other thing is these guys, Rhett and Paul, who wrote this and they wrote Deadpool, are just so creative with like the action scenes, you know, stuff that never occurs to people like me who like to think of jokes. You know, like that there'll be a bus going this way and an alien with legs going this way. And they just think of stuff that's so creative and so innovative and is at once funny and, you know, I guess suspenseful.
Is that what attracted you to doing the first Zombieland? Because it was after the The first Zombieland, was that pre-Social Network?
Yeah.
Yeah, Social Network was 2012, right? Or was it before that?
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, this was before. And like Woody Harrelson and I both had the script. Well, actually, the first time I heard about Zombieland was from a friend of mine, Greg Mottola. I was on set doing this movie, Adventureland, that he was directing.
I love that movie, by the way. It's
thanks.
a great movie.
And Greg is like a sophisticated, kind of, intellectual filmmaker. And he's like, and he had just done Superbad. And he said, they just sent me a movie called Zombieland. I can't believe this is what I'm getting sent. And and we were making fun of it because the name is so stupid, And then I got sent it, and I wrote Greg an email. Oh my God, I just got sent Zombieland, and I didn't open it. I didn't open the script for weeks because it's just such a stupid title. You don't think no one, you just think this is like a base thing. And Woody Harrelson, coincidentally, he's obviously more famous than me, but got sent the script and also didn't open it for weeks. And then finally, we had the same experience when we.
I like the idea though that you and Greg Mottola were like, no, this is dumb, and Woody Harrelson got it and was like, Zombieland, let's see.
No, he didn't open it. No, oh yeah, exactly, right, yeah. In your parallel universe, that is funny too. Yeah, but the truth, also has merit. And in my real world version, we both, at some point read it, and as a long-winded version of just saying that, once we read it, we were like, we both.
Who finally read it first?
I don't, probably Woody, because they offered him the part, and probably, paid him. But like, not to read it, but like, it said like, we'll pay you.
Money was on the table first, and then he was like, okay, now I'll give it a read.
Something like this, yeah. And for me, they said like, it's just I was, one of a million people that were reading the script. But I remember just reading it, thinking this hasn't earned the right to be this funny because it's like a genre movie. And I just was so surprised that it was so funny, even more than just being funny. Like the characters were so real. Rhett Reese, who is kind of like my character is kind of based on. He's one of the writers. There's like scenes in the first movie where the character's like weeping over the body of this girlfriend that he had to kill and everything. And after doing the scene, I walked out to where the producers and the writers watched the scenes from the monitor, and Rhett is sitting there blithering. And this is not like the kind of thing you would expect for like a zombie comedy, but I think it's because it's written with that much heart, and it's written with that much with that seriousness of pathos that it's good. It has some, I think, like trickle-down effect to the audience that they feel it's authentic in some way that a kind of snarky comedy without that kind of heart isn't.
Did you have any interest in genre like that at all before doing it? Maybe not in doing it, but did you grow up watching horror movies or genre movies?
No, never, and nor do I have any interest now. I mean, the reasons I like Zombieland is for all the other elements,
right? And
it actually takes the kind of horror stuff and almost turns it on its head. It has the characters in this almost like kind of self-aware way, are kind of like. In this movie, especially because this movie is 10 years later than after the apocalypse, right? So like the characters by this point are bored by some of the zombies because they know, I know how to kill this one. I've been doing it for 10 years. And so there's kind of like a self-awareness.
Almost like us as audiences with zombies.
Exactly. Right. They reference that. There's even like a reference in this movie to like The Walking Dead and how like I'm reading The Walking Dead. I say, this is so unrealistic, there's like a real self-awareness to it, and it's so clever, and it's not self-aware in like an annoying way. It's self-aware and kind of just in a clever, smart, sweet way.
Do you enjoy, I mean, it's been 10 years since the four of you got together. Did you feel when you were shooting the first movie that there was a genuine sort of delight in each other and that it was going really well?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about this now for the first time. I think usually with like funny people, you usually have one of two relationships. There can be a competitiveness amongst comedians. We're not really comedians, but with funny people in a funny movie, I guess it can kind of probably manifest as really competitive and not enjoyable. This was not the case. I did another movie with a really funny person, Jason Segel, and it was the same exact thing. We had just like just amazing time together, even though we're both funny people, kind of from a similar comic world. And so with this kind of thing, it was just this wonderful experience. I guess also we're so different demographically, biographically, that there was no feeling like I'm going to step on the same joke you would make because we're so different. We would give each other jokes, like, oh, this might be funny if you said this. Woody's great, he's a larger-than-life personality, but is so generous too at the same time. So he would say, you try this thing, and he would. It was an ideal collaboration, which is why, even Woody and Emma, who are like doing much like bigger movies, why they still wanted to do it, because it's just an ideal collaboration. I think we all felt that way.
What about when in this movie Thomas Middleditch and Luke Wilson show up, and you're literally supposed to be playing versions of the same the same people? Was there a competitiveness there, or?
Well, we were
with Middleditch, who's like an insane improviser.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He can just go I mean, he could just, you have to turn him off.
Yeah. He is brilliant. That's in my opinion, like when we were doing the movie, I was looking forward to the scene because I think it's the funniest scene in the script because it's so out of nowhere. Like basically, the story is like Woody and my character were named Columbus and Tallahassee, and then these guys named Flagstaff and Albuquerque who look like us, sound like us, and who also have like the same like eccentric tics that we have. And they're just better in every way. They're stronger, they're smarter, they're friends. Whereas Woody and I like are kind of annoyed by each other. So it was like this perfect setup, and we didn't know who they were going to cast, and it was kind of a weird part to do in the first place for them to do because you're kind of playing like versions of other actors. And then Thomas came in and is just brilliant. Like he has a group with Ben Schwartz, and they improvise at like Carnegie Hall. I think is the first improv show at Carnegie Hall. They're just brilliant, and it was so much fun. If I was coming into like his movie, then I think I'd be really intimidated. But because who's the much better improviser than me, was coming into something that it was my element, I think it kind of leveled the playing field a little bit because he's quicker than me, but like I have the, kind of seniority, so to speak. So like it kind of leveled the playing field and was just really fun. And some of the funniest lines in the movie just came out of weird improvisations.
I love and I mean, I won't spoil anything, but I love that sequence itself because it immediately goes in a direction that is unexpected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, you assume these guys are all going to be like best friends and the movie's going to take a different road and then something strange happens. It's a zombie movie, you could figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're a playwright. You've had what, three plays staged? Four, excuse me.
Come on, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Fuck. Blowing this Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Your plays are nothing like Zombieland. They're not like heavily invested in genre,
right? No,
per se.
It's hard to do it on stage.
True, some do. I mean, what do you get out of doing that versus doing this?
It's not. I mean, the appearance is so dissimilar, and the presentation, and certainly the budgets and stuff. But to me, it I would say exercises the same part of my brain, which is how to tell a story, how to kind of think of characters in a way that is both entertaining but emotionally honest. So even in a movie like this, the characters have real emotional lives, not to sound or to give it a weighty pretension that it doesn't deserve. But you still, as actors, you're trying to kind of give it some emotional grounding and still try to make it entertaining. I do some playwriting workshops with students, and my wife is a teacher in high schools. And I always say it's great to tell your story in an authentic way, but you have to have something that's entertaining, and so that's why I look at something like Zombieland as so wonderful and not at all let's say antithetical to doing a great theater piece, because you have to have something that's entertaining, and Zombieland remembers that and does it, in spades, and that's why it's a kind of an accessible movie.
Entertaining is such an interesting word, though, because I think because we're talking about it in reference to Zombieland, people assume that entertaining means being funny or being comedic, but if you're talking about plays, oftentimes entertaining just means simply have a character interrupt a long monologue, make sure that there's conflict here.
That's right. That's right, and that accuracy alone is not enough. And that if you're writing about your authentic experience, that's wonderful, but how can you make it for an audience, engaging for an audience? This is, I think, the mistake that people who write really personal things sometimes make, which are great. It's great to write personal things, but you have to, there's a great quote does it count as a quote if it was said to me personally and it's not written down anywhere? But somebody said, you don't have to write something for everybody, but you have to write something for somebody. Right. And anyway, I think Zombieland is a good example of something that appears to be really commercial popcorn movie, but is actually written from the perspective of guys who take it very seriously.
In terms of entertaining, I always think of the quote from the Todd Solondz film Storytelling, where she says, everyone's criticizing her story.
True.
And she says, this happened to me.
This is true.
And he says, I don't care what happened. As soon as you start writing it, it becomes fiction.
Yeah.
And we can all, and basically saying that we can all tear it to shit if we want to, if it's written poorly.
Then they have sex in the hotel room.
But prior to that. I mean, the context of it is actually, let's not talk about the context of that story, because it's quite dark.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
When did you start writing plays?
Well, I started writing movie scripts, bad versions of Zombieland when I was 19, because when I started acting in movies, I was reading comedy scripts, kind of Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler, those kind of commercial comedies that were being made.
You started acting when you were 14, 15?
Well, doing theater, and then I was in movies at 18. and I thought, I could do this. I could write these kind of commercial comedies. It was the bad version of Zombieland, kind of a commercial comedy but without soul. And you just interviewed Tim Heidecker. I think he works with Bob Odenkirk. or did. And Bob Odenkirk, I was doing a movie with Bob, and I gave him one of my comedy scripts, and he said, and he used to write for Adam Sandler and stuff, and he said to me, dude, why would you write this? You're a thoughtful person, thoughtful, sensitive guy. Why would you write something that they would hire somebody like me to write in a weekend for Adam Sandler that he wouldn't end up even doing? I was so discouraged because I had like 4 movie scripts that I had taken years to write. And so then like a year later, I was discouraged, but then a year later I went to Poland I was working on a movie in Europe, and I went to Poland to visit a cousin I had who was like a survivor of the war, and I wrote this play about her and a kind of bad version of me, like a kind of really bad, like a mean-spirited version of me visiting this war survivor in Poland now, and that was the first play I wrote, and then like 7 years later, Vanessa Redgrave ended up playing my cousin, and we did it downtown, and it just changed my whole life creatively, because it made me think, I can be in control of my creative career. I don't just have to be beholden to like movie parts, and also I could write about personal things, and they could be just as valuable as another play that's on, or they could be more valuable than a movie script that seems commercial.
What was that like when you handed that to Bob Odenkirk and he said that to you? Did you know right away? Did you get it and sense it, or were you just discouraged and then had to come around to what he was saying?
Miserable for months and months. Yeah, because
Can I ask what the script was?
Oh yeah, I mean, my last script was called The Vigilante, and it was like a romantic comedy about this New York guy who's like, one of these typical New York vigilantes, that's like if somebody's making too much noise in the apartment, they get them kicked out. One of these like, horrible, people that exist in New York and nowhere else seemingly. And then the guy meets his match. He meets a girl who he got kicked out or whatever, and then they, it's the stupid thing. And I wrote another, like, the funniest script I wrote was, like, even before that. I wrote it, like, a week after September 11th, like, like a lot of people wrote after September 11th because you don't know what's happening in the world, and so this thing just...
Hilarious.
Yeah, really funny. No, but that was a funny script about these 2 Jewish kids that pool together their bar mitzvah money and go on this bowling tour across the country, like, competitive bowling tour, and that was actually really funny, but, like, too weird. And,
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty good, and it vaguely reminds me of, Woody Harrelson vaguely reminds me of Kingpin, just because, which is, in my mind, one of the great sort of like mainstream comedies ever made.
This was not that. And then I wrote a script called College Seniors that Michael Bay's company optioned for me when I was 19 years old, and it was about these 2 guys that go to college, and their dorm room situation is so bad that they end up using prosthetics, posing as senior citizens to live in the nearby senior citizen center, which is like this amazing palatial place. So they're like going to school, going to college by day, and then having to like live their life as senior citizens at night. So these things, if you're shocked, they didn't get made, and then I wrote a Holocaust drama.
Optioned is like a huge deal when you're 19.
Yeah, because
did you have a meeting with Michael Bay?
No. I'm sure he knows zero about it. It's he has a huge company that has development. They have to buy 25 comedies a year. They make none of them or one of them, and that that wasn't mine.
Have you ever met Michael Bay? Have you ever? You never worked with Michael Bay?
No.
No. So you would have no idea. You've never brought that up to him. Would you if you met him?
I can't imagine what I would say. I know he's like probably an intimidating person. Yeah. I wrote a script when I was 16 that was about Woody Allen at 16, but set in modern day. And it got to an agent through a teacher I had, and Woody Allen ended up sending me a cease and desist letter. And I since worked with him a few times and never mentioned it to him because he wouldn't be aware. It was just his lawyers. And then we did press together at a film festival, and some journalist in the back said, "Are you upset that you sued him or something?" And that was an accurate accent, not a bad thing to do. That was like authentic.
Be honest, you got off light.
What's that?
You got off light there.
Yeah, right. He didn't know until somebody mentioned it.
Wow. And did he just like, I have no idea?
He couldn't care less. He's like thinking he does a movie a year. He's like, I didn't know that, and that's okay. Yeah.
And what made you decide to focus on playwriting? I mean, obviously, because you can do sensitive, thoughtful material in movies as well, but was theater, did you direct all of your attention more towards theater because it seemed more accessible and something you could do rather than spend 2 years writing a movie script and then just have it languish in development or never get made?
Yes and no. Part of it was like that script I told you about, The Vigilante. I sent the person that ended up like liking it the most. I'll tell you, actually, it was optioned by Paul Weitz's company, I forgot the name of the company. Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz did American Pie and all sorts of other, good movies. Great movie. About a boy at the time they did, which was one of my favorite movies. So they opted Depth of Field is the name of the company. And then it got sent to Steve Carell's manager. I think he was just in the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And Steve Carell's manager gave me all sorts of notes. And I did all the notes. And then I got like another take 6 months to read it again. Got a ton of other notes. And I could tell at some point, this is never, ever going to get made. I'm doing this for some vague reason. I can't figure out why I'm doing this, why I'm doing these notes, because I could tell it's not going to get made. And I was so discouraged.
That's so discouraging because after 6 months, you do the notes and then you wait 6 months. You're kind of over that script, that idea. You've done all this work on it. 6 months later, you have to get back into it. You have to find a groove of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are harder jobs in this world. I just can't think of any. But no, I'm sure people break rocks and stuff. But I mean, it was just annoying, if anything, more than anything. I mean, but that's nothing. And writers in Hollywood, there were like 10 different drafts of Zombieland 2 written before we did this one. There were writers that wrote completely different movies, of which you'll see none of in this movie. So that's the nature of Hollywood writers. That's why I stopped doing it, because I found it incredibly frustrating and creatively unfulfilling. And so anyway, but playwriting was the exact opposite. I thought, let me try my hand at this. The first theater company that picked up my play, even though it took like 6 years to get into this theater company, I said, what changes should he make? He's like, well, what changes do you want to make? I said, none, of course. I finished it. He was like, great, let's do it. And then there were some things that maybe weren't working in the play or whatever, but you've waited until previews, where audiences are in, and you could make changes to fix those things.
Right, or you're in rehearsals and you're
exactly
talking to the people who are actually performing it, and they're telling you how they feel about the lines.
That's exactly right. In fact, Vanessa Redgrave, it's a brilliant English actress, rewrote the most important monologue of the play I wrote about my cousin, who she played. Yeah, so...
What did that feel like, to have her rewrite it?
It was great. I mean, because she was right. She wrote other stuff that was wrong, and she insisted on carrying a cell phone around on stage, even though the character specifically does not have a cell phone. So there was some other stuff, but she's so brilliant, and she tries everything. I mean, somebody like that who's been doing it forever, likes to try everything that they're not going to do, because when you end up doing a performance for 100, when you have to do a show for like 100 performances, you want to make sure you exhausted every possible option. But I found playwriting to be far more like inviting and beneficial to the writer.
Yeah. The Social Network is an amazing movie, an incredible, incredible film, and your performance is iconic, not just I think because it's Mark Zuckerberg, but because it's an iconic performance. When you reach a spot like that, where someone like me, some jerk like me, is saying something's iconic,
you're a jerk.
Does that feel limiting? Did that feel limiting at all afterwards? That people saw you as that performance?
No, it was like the exact opposite, because before that I was only playing characters that were like very sweet, shy people. Right. And I was so frustrated with it.
Right?
Yes, I was so frustrated with doing the sweet thing, and all I wanted to do was play characters that were brash, and especially because I grew up being very shy and very, and sweet as a kid, and never having a fight with anybody, and never being a bully or anything. Not that I would want to do that anyway, but no, not even a hair of any kind of that. So it was so cathartic to be able to not only play it in that movie, but then to get sent other movies, like be a villain in a superhero movie. Like, to me, like, I would never think of myself for that. So if I hadn't done that movie, and where the character was not only multifaceted but also kind of Machiavellian in some ways, I would never have had the opportunity to do such a wide variety of roles. Like, character in Zombieland is far more along the lines of what I am as a person. Right. Intellectual, shy, and so doesn't speak up for himself. Is the target of a stronger guy or whatever. Is the beta male thing.
Who are you the target of right now?
Like Woody, kind of picks on me and all that. Oh, you're saying in my real life? Yeah. Oh, taxi drivers. And so.
Are you the guy from the Social Network? And then they yell at you and make fun of you.
You're going to 26. Why? What's on 26th Street? Anyway, so no, so it was like the exact opposite of limiting. It was like. I was like won the acting lottery to be able to be seen in a movie that shows, not only to be seen in a movie, but a popular movie that shows a completely different side. Because normally, when you're in a popular movie, you're playing the thing that you're most like. Because normally the popular movies are the most accessible ones, and the least popular movie are the ones where you get to really stretch, so to speak. So no, this was like the best blessing you could possibly want.
Do you think Fincher as a director is misunderstood, or is sort of like the myth about him pretty much on point?
What is the myth?
An extended amount of takes, exacting, perfectionist.
That's all real, but I would say when you're doing it, you know why. It's as opposed to like, yes, the story around it, I suppose. But if you're not there, it seems like I guess, eccentric. But if you're there, you're like, oh, of course, we're trying to get this particular thing. Right. And he wants the camera to move in this particular direction. And he wants the actors to do a certain thing. And I, as an actor, want to do this particular thing. So, of course, it makes sense. But that's typical. You know, anytime you meet somebody who has some kind of like mythology around their creativity, it makes sense in their context.
Once you work with them, you get the sense, you know why.
Yeah. As opposed, I mean, otherwise it would be like gratuitous or something, and that's just not him.
Baumbach is kind of that way as well, though, right? Like fairly exacting, like on set, and
I guess so. I mean, he comes from like kind of more of a writer's perspective, and so I guess he was kind of
less technically exacting, but the performances are calibrated to be very specific and subtle. So I imagine.
I guess so. It's the nature of that kind of movie, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned Batman versus Superman, Lex Luthor. There is this online conspiracy about the Justice League movie.
There's a conspiracy online?
Yeah. Yes. I've sort of paid attention to it more because I think it's quite funny. Mm-hmm. Is that there's a group of people who believe there is a special cut of the Justice League movie called the Snyder Cut.
I heard about this for the first time in an interview I just did at the Bartool Sports Center.
Like most conspiracies online, they go up and up, and then finally normal people start talking about them.
Right. They're up there with chemtrails. I don't know.
You want to talk about chemtrails? No.
Please, thank you. I don't know anything about it, and I wasn't there enough. Like, I'm not in the movie that much.
But I mean, I don't necessarily think that it exists or anything, but is that strange the way these sort of, these conspiracies, even just within the realm of mainstream entertainment movies, have started to bubble up? Like, it can't just be a movie. Now it's like, this has a special cut that everybody took away, and they're trying to deny this man his artistic vision kind of thing.
Oh, is that the feeling behind it?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess that would be a cool thing to see, right?
Do you want them to release the Snyder Cut? Is that what you're saying?
I might be in another scene of it, so sure, yeah. Because I did some scenes that I think are not in the movie, but I haven't seen the movie. But I did some scenes.
You haven't seen the movie?
No, but I no,
Did
not.
You see Batman versus Superman?
No, I don't. I don't see.
You don't watch
a protest. I don't watch it myself. Yeah, I would like it if I wasn't in it. I'm sure. But no. But I think I did some scenes that are probably not in the movie. So of course, yeah.
What's the last movie of yours that you saw?
So Woody Harrelson. It is Woody Harrelson to you guys, but to me, Woody. Yeah. Sometimes even Wood or Woodman. Sometimes I just say, hey, and he knows.
He's the only one in the room, so he knows.
Yeah, usually, and if I'm texting him, it's definitely to him. But he dragged me to Zombieland in like Miami. I forgot, we were on some press tour, which was a vegan press tour because Woody's a vegan, and so like we did like all these cities on press tour, and like everywhere we got like the best vegan food, one of everything from whatever the best vegan restaurant is.
This Zombieland,
the previous Zombieland. Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's culminating with the last movie I saw. And so he like dragged me to this, and we saw it like 4 times at these different screenings around the country, because we could not have foreseen the reaction that Zombieland had.
Right.
I'm telling you, like, I've been in a lot of movies, and I'm on like the front lines of people's reactions to it. You know, because people see me in airports and tell me what they think of movies I've been in. Zombieland has the most unusual reaction of any movie I've ever done, and Woody too, and Emma too. Like, people like tell me things like, you know, this is my family's favorite movie. We get together every Thanksgiving and we watch this. Like weird stuff you wouldn't expect from a zombie comedy.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's speaking to.
Well, there's a warmness to the movie.
I guess that's it. Maybe there's like a warmth, but without kind of like, it's like a safe warmth. Like you don't have to feel like you're watching a Hallmark movie.
Right.
But at the same time, you get the same kind of like emotional reaction to it.
Right.
So
I mean, in some respects, it is about family. These 4 become a family or a surrogate family for each other. And this one as well, they get separated and then they have to find their way.
That's right, yeah. So maybe that's what it is. Because I'm telling you, the reaction is so unusually personal for a movie that seems like kind of a broad comedy, you know. So so when Woody and I saw the movie in Miami, it was just like, he took me because he had seen it already with an audience, and he said, you have to see this, trust me. And we sat there, and it was like mind-boggling. It was kind of just because the audience's reaction it was like they were laughing. It was just amazing. It was
so
just
the first Zombieland is the last movie of yours that you've seen?
Yeah. It was a good movie. You know, it's a good way to end the
run.
Yeah.
You haven't seen The Social Network?
That we had to go to a public thing, and I did not look up. It was mortifying, yeah. And that was the last time I had to be in a theater, yeah. And that I just didn't look up. And then,
So when you get nominated for a part like that, you haven't seen it. You have no idea what takes they've used in or anything like that. You have no idea really, like, do you feel like you're just getting nominated for the feeling that you had on set rather than for what you know of the performance?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is kind of what you just said is crystallized by exactly what you just said. Is like you often feel as an actor like this was the best. I had like the most like, let's say, like authentic, connected experience during a particular project, and then the movie comes out and for whatever reason no one likes it, or it's not good, or you are not even good in it because of the editing or because your wig was on in a way that doesn't dovetail with the character's emotions. A million different things, right?
Right.
Or the music doesn't, a million things. And so I never, so I don't watch myself too, because it's like partly it's totally inconsistent with the feeling I had about it, you know?
Or sometimes you do incredible work and the movie itself showcases your incredible work, but for some reason the movie doesn't necessarily land.
Yeah, this happens all the time. Yeah, exactly. And then conversely, which is even more unnerving, is that you feel like you kind of didn't do so great, or you weren't connected every day, or whatever the goal that you set for yourself is, and still you're like lauded, and then you're like, oh Jesus, I'm not in control of any of this.
I feel like you had incredible luck this summer. Was it with The Art of Self-Defense, which is, I don't say luck because the movie, I loved the film, but when that movie landed the way that it landed, I was shocked. I had no idea that it would get picked up the way that it did, because it felt like this movie was for me. Like,
me too. I mean, when I read it, I thought, no one will see this and it'll be my favorite thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And then, I was half right. I was one of my favorite things I've ever done, maybe my favorite thing I've ever done. And then people really liked it. Nadia, my friend, loved it. And she goes to Columbia, so she's smart. Yeah. What's that? Not that smart, apparently, but self-aware enough to acknowledge her own flaws. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily like take the world by storm, but I mean, it kept going. It kept playing for quite some time, I felt like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and people love it now because it's on, I think it's on I don't know, you could watch it on a telephone now, I'm sure. Yeah. That's the end
On a rotary phone?
Yeah, that's the end result. Yeah, exactly. You have to, wait for a while.
There's a question from Twitter. It's, as excited as I am to see Double Tap, The Art of Self-Defense was amazing. Oh, this ties right into what we're saying.
Yeah, okay.
How different was the process for filming these? Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, okay, well, thank you. Wait, is there a name I should say? Yes, thank you.
Sam Mabs. Money sign Mabs.
Oh.
Or Julia Amebeli.
Julia Amebeli. Thank you.
Amebeli.
Thank you,
Amebeli.
Julie. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, just by contrast, like The Art of Self-Defense costs like $1 million to make and films in like 19 days or something, and Zombieland costs a lot more money and films over the course of a long time.
Art of Self-Defense, you sit in holding with the extras. Yeah. Zombieland, you have a trailer.
Yes. Wait, not just the extras, with a dog. Like, because there was like a dog on set in The Art of Self-Defense, so we were all sitting with the dog. Yeah, like in a basement with the dog. But I will say, like, as an actor, like, you're kind of asked to do similar things. Like, even on a movie like The Art of Self-Defense, which is a much smaller movie and kind of stranger humor, you're still, like, given free reign as an actor. Like, if you want to do another take, like, all the stuff you would get on a big movie, like, can I do another take? And they have enough money and time to do it. Actors' jobs don't change that much. You know, if you're like a production designer and you're coming up with all the sets and painting all the sets, you're screwed on a small movie because you have a limited amount of resources. But as an actor, you don't need anything. It's free to act. So having a smaller budget doesn't affect you that much. You know, you could say, can I do another take? And they'll give it to you. Whereas on a big movie, if you're creating a set for Zombieland, you know, and you have to have monster trucks and all this, you know, big stuff in the White House and you don't have enough money, that's a problem.
Right. Your job mainly consists of like you and 3 other people dealing with the frame and whoever else is within the frame.
That's exactly right. So it doesn't, actors like don't differ as much as people might suspect.
Right. Next question. Who's got some audience question right here? Hey, man.
Hi.
What you want me to?
No, you're good. Go ahead. What's up?
Oh, well, it's an honor to see you.
Oh, thank you.
I never thought I'd actually see you in person. But what I wanted to know is, how did you prepare yourself to play Mark Zuckerberg? That's what I want to know.
Well, so like with a real person, there's some advantages to acting as a real person in that you can kind of like pick things from their life. The ideal thing is to pick only a few things. If you start to try to do everything of like, you know, how they furrow their brow, it'll look really distracting and audiences will think, what am I watching? This seems like an inauthentic person I'm watching. So you pick a few things that stick out. So for like a guy like that, I noticed like he stands up really straight. Why does he stand up straight? I read a college application that said he took fencing classes. So I took like a fencing class and I saw they make you stand up straight. And so stuff like that. So like that's a real thing. You probably wouldn't notice it if you're watching the movie. but that's like a thing that you can kind of steal, right, from a real person and then use it, and it has some effect in some way. I just did a movie where I played Marcel Marceau, the mime. Now, he's American, he's French and stuff, so there's a difference there. But, like, I was watching interviews with him, and he had a kind of certain self-importance in some of his interviews that I thought, okay, let me use that. It'd be interesting. So you kind of, like, can pick and choose, and you got to be careful and smart that you don't pick something that looks weird on you and that you don't pick something that's too obscure that it's just distracting. But thank you for your nice question. Thanks a lot.
2 more?
Hey, Jesse.
Hi.
So great to meet you.
too.
So it's obviously been 10 years since the last one, and you've grown so much as like a person and an actor in that time. So I was wondering if there was anything like new in your personal or professional arsenal that you were able to bring to Columbus this time around that you weren't able to the first time.
Thank you. That's another very thoughtful question. I would say that the main thing I thought we could bring to this one was like, well, in the first one, I was so surprised that like we would make jokes all the time in the first one that were like really strange, obscure, random references. And I thought, there's no way these will wind up in the movie. I'm just making my friends laugh. And then it turned out to be those are the things that really worked in the movie sometimes. Like those are the things that audiences really liked. So going into this one, it wasn't so much that I grew as a person or something, but I kind of just knew that we could do that again. You could say something random. And I even hesitated a little bit in this one because it's just you have an instinct to hesitate to say something too strange, you know, while you're on a set with people and you don't want to screw up a take for other people by having some Arby's reference or something. But it did occur to me that like I could, yes, have the confidence to like say something a little odd and it'll work in the context of this movie.
It's kind of a great lesson, right? Because they always say you should write what you want to write, what you want to see.
Yeah.
And yet, when it comes to movies, everybody who starts writing often is like, well, I've got to write something that'll sell.
Of course.
I got to write this. And so you immediately kneecap yourself from writing something potentially good,
Yes.
when often something that is original and is good will land with an audience.
Yes, I think that's the Deadpool guys. The guys who wrote this and Deadpool. I think that's exactly their rubric. I don't think they always get to do it because they're also writers for hire that get hired to write like other stuff. But I think when they're in their like element, they do exactly what you just described.
Yeah. One more.
Hey, Jesse. As you mentioned, you've been acting since you were in your teenage years now. I was wondering who has been your favorite director to work with, and what are some of the reasons why?
Well, the smartest, funniest guy I know is this guy, Richard Ayoade. He's this English director. He did 2 movies. One was Submarine, which is phenomenal, and the other one that I did with him is also very good, called The Double. And he is just brilliant. I would recommend looking him up online. His name is Richard Ayoade. He's also very well known for doing these interviews. Have you ever interviewed him?
I've never interviewed him, but I saw him this year in The Souvenir. I thought he was fantastic.
Oh, right.
In
He's
it.
one scene in The Souvenir. He's just brilliant, and I'll tell you why he's great. Well, first of all, he created the context of this movie. The movie's called The Double. He set it in this time and place that you can't put your finger on. And then he's so amazing with actors. He had all these great actors that he's worked with for a long time, because he's been a comic and an actor for a long time, come in to do like one little part, like this guy Chris O'Dowd, who's now very famous. He did like one scene in it. And he asks everybody to like do something special with each role. And so every actor, like famous people came in for like a day, said I would do any part for him ever, because I know every single role is treated with such thoughtfulness. So Chris O'Dowd, for example, is just playing like an intake nurse at a hospital, but he did so much with his character because Richard asks him to do that. And so that's probably, I would say, is my favorite director, because as an actor, like, the best thing you could be asked to do is like do something special with the role you were given. Don't just deliver the letter. Deliver the letter for like a reason, you know? And then he can edit it how he wants to, so maybe it doesn't overwhelm the movie. But that's what I like the best. And it probably comes from him also being an actor and occasionally being a frustrated actor, being given a stupid part in something, so he knows what actors need and what they want.
That's so fascinating and like kind of subjective, right? Because don't you think that most directors would think that they are asking their actors to deliver the letter with some meaning,
right?
But they don't necessarily know how to communicate it the way that Richard does, which is
that's
sort of where the meat is. What you're saying
Yeah, and maybe what you're saying is the difference between him and other people. But I think people are I think sometimes looking at 90% of the cast as functionary and 10% of the cast as characters.
You have your main cast, and then you have all of your sort of bit parts or your extras.
Yeah, that's right. And it's kind of, I wouldn't call it necessarily like a laziness, because some movies just don't require it. I mean, if you have Fast and the Furious, not every character has to be interesting. There's going to be 1,000 people in that movie, and some of them are going to be delivering a letter, and it'd be distracting.
Jonathan Demme said, like, every person that appears on screen is a character in the movie.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
should be treated as such.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And like so I write these plays, and I never write a character that comes on for a scene.
Right.
Partly it comes from my experience doing theater and having to sit backstage for 3 hours and go on for 2 minutes. So like it's not in my instinct to even do that. And perhaps with Richard, who we were talking about, probably does the same thing because he was an actor.
Right. Jesse, I love having you here.
You
Thanks
too.
for coming
It's always
back.
nice to
It's good to
do
see
this.
you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Zombieland Double Tap opens Friday next week, right? October 18th?
18th, yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg, everybody, let's hear it.